One. Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of What's Happening in Travel. I am here with my buddy,
Sure.
and I am Kerwin, and this is episode 71.
Yes.
And we're doing it on Saturday, March 6th, in a day when Houston is like amazing temperatures.
Ideal weather.
Ideal weather. The only thing is that it starts out like some mornings at 42 degrees and then it gets to 80 degrees by the time the day goes. And then, when the sun's setting, the temperature just changes to like 60 in like less than an hour. It's very bizarre.
And these are rare days.
Yes.
And they're perfect days.
They are actually. And the good thing is that I see that although a lot of the plants are brown, like all the ferns are brown, if you
from the freeze.
Yeah, but if you look closer, they're budding.
Yeah, they are.
Yeah, they are budding. So that's really good. And I saw one bee yesterday. And y'all probably like, why is he excited about bee? Well, the bee pollinates the thing, and what's that?
All our agriculture relies on it.
Exactly. So when we don't see the bee, it means that something is wrong. And it's wrong because the azaleas normally come out first.
Yep.
But they're all
dead, though.
They're all dead. That's the thing. They started to come out and now they're dead. So it's like the bees are like, well, what do I do now? All right. So Christian, before we begin, what airplane do you have in your background today?
That without prior consultation, we both have 747s taking off. But I have the first flight of the 748 out of Boeing Field in Everett.
Very cool.
So,
okay, so you said Boeing Field in Everett.
Actually, that's not true.
You mean Plain Field in Everett?
Yes.
Okay, all right. Just making sure, because someone's gonna go, Boeing Field is not in Everett. I'm like, yes, we know. So thank you.
Well, apparently I did not know, but that's all right.
No,
but okay. I know what you mean.
So. Yeah, it's okay. Because I guess just everyone, there's Boeing Field, which is actually in Seattle, very close to SeaTac Airport. And that's really where they do a lot of delivery flights. It's also where the Museum of Flight is.
Right. The 737 is.
Well, so the 737 is actually in Renton, which is where they make those. And when they fly out of Renton, they never fly back because that part of that runway is really short. But they build them in Renton, and then they'll take them to the other, I guess, whenever
Boeing Field.
Yeah, they go take them to Boeing Field. They do their delivery preps and stuff like that there. And then, so there's Renton, there's Boeing Field, and there's Paine Field. And Paine Field is in Everett. And we've been talking about how Boeing is leaving Everett slowly but surely. So cool. And I have, and like Kusha is saying, it's very, we don't consult on our photos. And it's weird that they're both in the same location. I couldn't find I'm using a Malaysia Airlines 747-300 that I'd visited Kota Kinabalu. I think it might have been 2009 or something like that. And
that's pretty recent. I didn't realize you had been to Borneo.
Yes, I did. One of my friends I went to college with is from KK.
Okay.
And so he was going to go visit his parents, and it was actually around this time of the year, because I remember that I had to leave earlier because all the flights would have been full for Chinese New Year's.
Okay.
Yeah, and so I cut my trip short coming back just because of that. But yeah, and so here the 747-300 is taking off from Kota Kinabalu, and you're probably like, why would they send a 747 to KK? Because it was Chinese New Year. And so they just have all the wide bodies were coming out. And KK is the affectionate name for Kota Kinabalu.
I used to grow up, I grew up listening to Radio Australia for news and music. And I would love the way they would mispronounce or couldn't pronounce Kota Kinabalu. So that's why I knew from a very early age where and what it was.
I know, that's too funny. That's amazing. um, yeah, it's so that was actually good. And Kota Kinabalu is a really, really nice. It's very small, and it was good because since my friend is from there, I had a unique experience when I went.
3 countries on one island.
Yeah, it's interesting, isn't it?
But we're getting,
No, that's good.
we're digressing.
So okay, so I need to go back and okay, you said 3 countries on one island. Tell our viewers what you mean by that.
Malaysia, Brunei, and Indonesia share the same island of Borneo.
Which is quite interesting, isn't it? When you think
So-
about it. So can you imagine when they were divvying it up?
I know, really. Because Brunei has such an odd border with Malaysia and Indonesia. It's not a
Yeah,
straight shot border. But
right. I know, it's great. That part of the world is very. I need to go back to Indonesia because I only made it to Bali, and I made it to Jakarta. But for Jakarta, I wanted to go into the city, but the traffic in Jakarta is horrendous, and I didn't have enough time. I had like 4 hours, and the cab drivers are like, "No, you can't go to the city and come back in 4 hours." I was like, "What?" And so I didn't bother.
I think it's worse than Bangkok.
Oh, is it really? Oh,
in Jakarta. Yeah.
but at least Bangkok has that train, right?
Right.
Yeah. And the train actually goes from both airports that are in Bangkok. So that's good. All right. So we'll jump in what we have. So, excuse me, when we compile these, we try to put them in different categories, and we had some things that don't really fit in like airline or aircraft category. So we're gonna call this other category. And so, and by the way, I was gonna do a shave, but I just, yeah, it would
You're
take.
going for the rugged look.
I'm going for the rugged look. No, I just woke up late this morning. I had some errands to run, and I just didn't get a chance to shave. So if you see me looking scruffy, that's why. But next episode, although I shouldn't probably say that because this is probably going to be 2 episodes, but soon I'll get shaved. Okay. So our first story we have is says Universal Hydrogen beefs up its personnel. What is Universal Hydrogen? What do they do?
So again, that sounds like a topic that has nothing to do with aviation, but it has everything to do with aviation.
Okay, let's hear it.
And the reason I included this is because this is a company, a 1-year-old company based in Southern California, in Los Angeles, that is moving to build and market a hydrogen distribution and fuel logistic solution for the aviation sector. So just to backtrack a little bit, hydrogen fuel is sort of a lot more exotic sounding and difficult to achieve than electric EVs, electric vehicles.
Okay.
But this was an article that really got my attention because I think hydrogen is the better alternative to electricity, because to generate all that electricity takes energy. But for hydrogen, it's, I mean, people could argue, but it's a lot different.
Mm-hmm.
So, and another reason why I brought this up is that Toyota, I know this sounds very improbable, has released this updated version of their fuel cell hydrogen vehicle called the Mirai. And they've really made it look very, very traditional. And in fact, they're going to sell it in Europe from this year.
Yeah.
That's one of the reasons why I wanted to bring this to attention, because I think what they're doing is really important. So the first thing they've done is that they've appointed a new chief commercial officer. This is Universal Hydrogen.
Mm-hmm.
And he is, his name is Rod Williams. He was previously the vice president of marketing and regional programs for Bombardier. And what they also have is a new strategic advisory board
Yeah.
with a lot of very high profile names. For instance, one of them is Tom Enders, who was the a CEO of Airbus. There was also John Leahy, who was the chief commercial operator officer, of Airbus. Then there was someone called Carl Burleson, who was from the US FAA
Mm-hmm.
administrator, and then the chief scientist for the environment from the FAA called Lourdes Maurice. So it sounds like a very high-powered scientific advisory team for this company that intends to bring to market what they call an iron bird prototype of a fuel cell powertrain. So what an iron bird is sort of a ground-based testing device where all the components, the different components of an aircraft are put together to see if they work together in unison,
Okay.
as on an aircraft in flight. And they want to do this by the second quarter of 2021, which is essentially a year away.
Mm.
So they have an extremely ambitious goal. And what they want to do is they want to have this prototype available for regional and electronic vertical takeoff landing aircraft. Mostly a smaller sized aircraft, but it's still a
Yeah.
tremendously ambitious goal. And remember, hydrogen storage is one of the main problems because
Yeah.
it's a gas and it's not easy to store as a liquid form. That's one of the main hurdles that this company faces, but they appear to be ready for it. And what is even more interesting is that they have a goal to, as they say, retrofit existing regional aircraft with a hydrogen electric powertrain compatible with its modular capsule technology. So essentially, you just take something out and put something back in its place.
That'll be
That's
interesting.
that's why this story really captured my imagination, and
Yeah.
I really hope it comes to fruition because I do strongly believe hydrogen is the better alternative than
And
electricity. But
yeah. So it's interesting, right? Because you're talking about VTOL, which is vertical takeoff and landing, and that is getting a lot of traction. And the reason why it is because they want to be able to transport people between these large cities to the airports, and you don't have any runways in these big cities. So vertical takeoff and landing is the way to go. And
that's why United invested in that company.
exactly, exactly.
So
And so all those things you normally see at those animation of people jumping, going up to their rooftops or going to parking lots and jumping in these things, and they take you up and over and down. That's what this is going to be all about. So the competition now is to see if the hydrogen engines are going to win out against the electric engines,
yes,
right? That's the
so
big thing.
there might be a combination of both,
Yeah.
but I still say to have an electric engine, you need the batteries,
Yes, that's the
and
big
just and the batteries typically use a lot of these, as they call them, rare earth elements that
thing.
mostly come from China. So that causes a lot of geopolitical issues, depending on the egos of the leaders of the individual countries
Yes.
involved. So I really think hydrogen, once they can get past the storage dilemma, is the way to go. But clearly, I'm in the minority on that because there are, for instance, in the automobile industry, there's a lot more electric vehicles than hydrogen.
Right, there
So,
are. And I think they will solve the battery problem. I know that Hyundai is working
they all are.
on the electric helicopter that's going to actually work with Uber. And
Okay,
I
yeah.
know Uber was trying to work with Sikorsky, but Sikorsky is taking too long, and Sikorsky make helicopters. And so Sikorsky actually have a prototype in Dallas. I think they have two prototypes. And when I went to CES, I saw the first one. And I guess 2019, I saw the second prototype. So there's a lot of stuff that's going on in the back end and testing and stuff like that. So it'll be interesting to see what goes. But I guess electric is going to be first because we're doing that now. But we have hydrogen vehicles because some of the buses in Houston,
Yes,
they're hydrogen, right?
right.
Yeah, so it's
And
not.
most of them are electric, but I believe a few are hydrogen, correct?
Yeah, yeah. So
And I think
so
Honda and Toyota are the two companies that have hydrogen
yeah.
cars.
So it's good. So it means that it's not like a completely new technology. It's just that now people are concentrating more on it because there's more, I guess, pressure to
Yeah,
do alternate energy.
yeah. And the exhaust from a hydrogen vehicle aircraft would be water. Because
Ah,
what it
okay.
does is react with oxygen to
Yeah.
produce water.
So then will we still have contrails?
Yeah, we will.
So
We will.
people are still gonna complain then because they don't understand how contrails work. But which we won't explain here. But what was the other thing I was gonna say? So when you said Iron Bird, so being from Jamaica, we call the airplanes Iron Birds. So
Yes.
so when you said they're building an Iron Bird, immediately my mind was like, oh, you're Jamaica. Because people would say, oh, I'm taking an Iron Bird to foreign, kind of is what they would say, which means that they're taking an airplane out of the country. So it was funny when you said that. All right, cool. Was it all you had for that one?
So we have a lot of very unusual topics this
No,
week.
which is good because I mean the industry is so vast, right?
Yeah.
All right.
There's so many other businesses that have a direct input into the aviation industry behind the scenes that we really don't think about. And they get very little press.
Yep. And when you go to shows like Farnborough Air Show, which is held in London, and the Paris Air Show, which is held in Paris, which is actually canceled for this year, and so it'll be Farnborough next year. It's normally held in June. You realize how huge the industry is and how all these intermoving parts. All right. So the next one we have is Honeywell. And Honeywell, like you normally won't see Honeywell's name on the outside of the plane, but it's all over the inside of the plane. So Honeywell expands its onboard UV treatment product line, which we had talked about this before, right?
Yes, we did.
Okay.
So Honeywell, as you mentioned, produces a lot of avionics. And a couple of weeks ago, we talked about how Honeywell was involved in breathing new life into UPS's Airbus 300 aircraft because they're used extensively in flight decks and cockpits of aircraft. So this was last year again, where we revealed that Honeywell had produced this prototype, which was essentially a tall robot with two wide arms that were actually UV lamps. And so what Honeywell is doing is using this very powerful UVC light to disinfect high-touch surfaces because bacteria and viruses, they disintegrate or their membranes are ruptured when strong UV light hits them. So these companies, several companies actually, including Boeing, have developed these UV radiation systems that spray that essentially cover all high-touch surfaces with UV light to disinfect them. And so what Honeywell did was to have this rather tall and large system to disinfect, for instance, regular-sized aircraft like the Airbus 320, Boeing 737 series, all the way to the 747 and the 777 and the 350. So what they've done now is bring out a pocket-sized version of that. Well, not exactly pocket-sized, but the battery is in a backpack that you can wear. The whole system weighs about 15 pounds, which is about 6.8 kilograms. And it's a handheld wand that you essentially just wave over smaller surfaces, like, for instance, regional jets or private jets. And they want to use this in, for instance, cars, trains, and buses. For instance, for a rental car, apparently you can do that in less than 5 minutes. The battery lasts for an hour and takes about 2.5 hours to recharge. And they say for one use of this, it costs about 10 US cents, which is very, very reasonable. What else was I going to say? You can cover about 1 square meter, which is about 11 square feet, in 17 seconds. It's not 15, it's not 20, it's 17 seconds. So you can do a business jet from its seating area to the labs to the cockpit in under 15 minutes.
Yeah, okay.
And airlines that are using the larger system by Honeywell include Qatar Airways, JetBlue, Azul, and a lot of other, like, Chinese carriers.
Yeah.
I just thought this was another interesting iteration of technology.
That's good, because we just don't, people don't think about what goes on in the back. They just get on the plane and they get off and they complain and they're quote unquote happy. So this is good. This is good to see all the little behind the scene things that's going on.
It's very reassuring to hear.
Yeah, it absolutely.
Technology and innovation is alive and well.
Yeah, well, you know what it is. During COVID, like, so when you say technology innovation, as an example, I go to a lot of conferences, and of course we can't have conferences because we can't do face to face. So but the technology for all these conference software is incredible. And there's so many. I used one called, and Wova is not a sponsor of this podcast, but I used one. It's WHOVA, and it's really good. Like, it has so many features. Even one thing it does a live transcript. The fun thing about the live transcript, though, is that you when it hears different accent, it doesn't translate the words the same. So but it's really, really good. And there's a whole bunch of other software that's out there, but I just remember this one because I used yesterday. And I bring this up to say that a lot of technological changes are going on just because of COVID, and it's going on very, very quickly.
Like the facial recognition, the online no-touch check-in, and this and that is really remarkable.
Yeah. Although when people talk about touchless, no. Because, for example, you go to Walgreens and they're like, "Oh, it's touchless." Oh, but can you type your Walgreens number in? I'm like, you just defeated the whole purpose there. So, and even when
Go ahead.
Even when I checked in when I'd flown Delta and they had touchless, I still had to touch the screen to activate it. I'm like, stupid. But I assume that they've fixed that now, because this was back in July last year.
I don't know if you saw this article about Qatar Airways. They have debuted this Touchless Ife, which is the in-flight entertainment. So you get a QR code on your screen on the aircraft.
Okay.
Point your phone's camera to it.
Okay.
And you have all the controls on your phone.
Oh, okay.
So you never have to touch anything on the aircraft to control your IFE. Now, some of this is going a little too far. It's over technology.
Yeah.
Too much technology for something that's really not required, but that's very subjective.
Yeah. It's not bad, and it makes sense. Only that I have to plug in my phone into the USB port on the plane, so I had to touch it anyway. But I get it, because this way you don't have to touch the screen and do all that, which is not
like
bad.
For instance, this week I had to get a rental car, which was a new 2021, and just changing the radio station is such a hassle, though. Like, you have to press about 3 or 4 buttons, then navigate. And I think that's a little too much.
It just means you need a new car, Kusha.
It was very nice.
But I totally hear you though. I mean, it's a lot of the stuff they do, you're like,
Over-engineered.
yes, like, can I just get back to what I had before?
Yes.
Yeah. And the whole
With
thing is,
dials and buttons.
yeah, which, which works.
It just doesn't look cool.
It just is, yeah, exactly. And something you're like, and the fun thing is they'll put things in the wrong place, and you're like,
So,
it's so ridiculous. Okay, but I missed what you were saying. So say it again.
about what?
You had just said something, and all I saw was your lips move.
Uh-oh. Buttons, they look old, buttons and dials, they look old, but
Yeah.
they're so functional and so much easier to use, at least in a car.
Yeah. So it's weird, right? What they're doing is they're designing these cars not for older people, and we're not old, we're in our 50s, but they're designing it because the kids, when they grow up,
Yes. Yeah.
they don't know what a dial is, right? They just,
Or a rotary telephone.
exactly, all they've done is just press these screens the whole time. So the funny thing about this, as you said, and of course we're off on a tangent. I mean, why wouldn't we, right? They when they talk about, so everybody's talking about screen time, right? Like how much screen time you've had.
Yep.
All these dumb programs checking your screen time, but everything they design, oh, why don't you use your phone? You can use your phone to control it. So, and then people complain, oh my God, I've been on my computer all day. Well, yes, because you designed everything around the computer. Everything has an app. So it's like, you can't have it both ways, right?
God help us if ever we lose internet connectivity.
Well, we did. That's what happened in Texas a few weeks ago.
Oh.
And it was
But
terrible.
will we learn from that?
No,
probably not.
No, we won't. We just keep on going. I mean, and it was bad because the power to the towers were not there, and the power to the homes were not there. So we had to use our phones, and then because we had to use our phones, everybody was using the signal from the tower. So when you drove around, people were parked in parking lots trying to get signals. We drove about at least 2 or 3 miles away from where we are, and sat in a parking lot with a whole bunch of other people in the dark trying to get, and all you could see was the security people were driving by and wondering, why are all these people here? But that's the only place you could get a signal. And so it's really bizarre. And then people were actually staying warm in their cars and outside. Thank God, but most people was outside and not like some of the people who sadly did that inside the garages. But people were staying warm in their cars in parking lots, and they were charging their devices using the thing. So yeah, when we don't have power and stuff, everything goes awry. So. And no, we have not learned. Okay. So we almost always have to have a Boeing story. And Boeing, we're not picking on you because, as you can see, both airplanes we have are Boeing airplanes. So we're your biggest fan. But what's the story about Boeing and McDonnell? Because Boeing bought McDonnell Douglas years ago.
Yes.
So what's going on now?
So this was a very interesting article by this person called Richard Abulafia. He's pretty well known in the aviation industry, and he's a consultant typically when he's being asked to speak, but he works for an aviation consultancy called the Teal Group.
Yeah.
And he wrote this very, very perceptive article called Will Boeing Become the Next McDonnell Douglas? So ask most people these days about McDonnell Douglas and they'll give you like this blank stare, like what or who is that?
Yeah.
So McDonnell Douglas came about when Douglas Aircraft merged with McDonnell, which mainly produced military planes in 1967. When the two merged, McDonnell really didn't want to invest a lot of money in commercial aircraft. And the only real viable product they had was the MD-90 series, which was really an extension and a modification of the DC-9 from Douglas.
Right.
And because of their real failure to invest in future concepts, the name McDonnell Douglas died, because really they had no market share anymore after the McDonnell Douglas, the MD-11, the DC-10 from Douglas, and from actually McDonnell Douglas, and so on and so forth.
Yeah.
And so what Mr. Abulafia did was point out the analogies between McDonnell Douglas and Boeing today. So he really, I think, hit the nail on the head when he pointed out these 5 issues where Boeing was following the McDonnell Douglas playbook. The first one was Boeing's significant engineering cuts in the near recent future. For instance, the R&D from Boeing has been cut by 20%, 25% between 2021 and 2020. And between 2020 and 2019, it was even more than that. And this is exactly what McDonnell Douglas did for commercial aviation.
Yeah.
They had program execution problems, which has been, again, repeated over and over by Boeing. First of all, and the most glaring example of that was the bungling of the 737 MAX aircraft. Then they had issues with the 787 in first the batteries and now the assembly of the aircraft. The third one was the clear prioritization of shareholder concerns over engineering excellence. That is clear. No arguing with that. They've got a very uncertain product development roadmap, because Boeing has had no new product since 2004 when they designed the clean sheet 787.
Okay.
Now, Airbus really is not in that much of a better situation, because they had the 350 in 2004, but it was poo-pooed. And so they had to go back to the drawing boards and come up with a brand new design, the 350 XWB, that came out in 2006. So that's an issue. And also Boeing has a deteriorating market share problem. Now, the product range that the two companies have, Airbus and Boeing, are very, very similar. There's almost no gaps, except for this mid-market sector, which is the 200-seat aircraft category, where the Airbus 321, the Neo version, is outselling Boeing's equivalent, which is the 737 MAX 8, MAX 9, MAX 10. Airbus is outselling that Boeing offering by more than a factor of 5 to 1.
But there's a reason for that.
Well, yes. But the fact is that Airbus has a huge lead in that market segment. Now, Boeing has recently made some moves to address that. First of all, with the NMA, the new mid-range aircraft, that was supposed to be coming in 2 versions, a twin aisle and a single aisle.
Right.
That was shelved because it was, I think, too broad and not focused enough. So now they've gone back to the drawing board with a brand new NMA version 2. And what Abulafia says is that he hopes it will be a clean sheet design, because there are some indications that Boeing might try to shorten the 787 or re-engine a 767, which would be a huge mistake, because there's a huge difference in technology and efficiency between the 767 generation and the current, the 350, 787.
Yep.
So the one thing that is in Boeing's favor is that Airbus is also sort of in a little bit of a pickle with this 350 development and the 380 write down. So if Airbus is okay with a 60 to 65% market share versus Boeing, they think Boeing will survive just fine, even though the roles have been reversed, because Boeing was the market leader.
Right.
But if Airbus decides to develop a competitor for the 787, which is Boeing's real bread and butter right now, then Boeing is in trouble. But it all depends on whether Boeing goes ahead and develops this new 757-767 replacement
Right.
in the next couple of years, because they've been dithering about it for years now. But it was just a very, very interesting article to read, and I hope Boeing management was aware of this.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure they
So
are. I mean, it sounds like the guy did his homework, which is good.
yeah,
But I mean, I think Boeing is good because here's the thing, right? There's no other company like if there was to be a takeover, who would take over Boeing?
you are correct.
And also there's also Boeing, like Airbus, there's Boeing military, which I guess always makes money for them because apparently we're always going and we can't get along with each other worldwide. So we always need stuff. So I don't think it's as dire as he puts it.
But the signs are there, though.
Well,
this is sort of the canary in the coal mine, as they say.
Yeah, the similarities are there.
Yeah.
I'm always a big proponent for Boeing pulling out of one place, going to the next, just because they could save a few millions or whatever. Or so people go, oh, things are looking good, let me buy more stock. And meanwhile, you've devastated a whole community because you moved your manufacturing out of there.
I think this 777X is such an amazing aircraft. But unfortunately, it's coming out at just the wrong time.
Yeah, it's a great airplane, but we have too many airplanes.
Airplanes.
Yeah.
So
and nobody's going anywhere, at least
yet
for the next year. So yeah. As I say that because did the Olympics get canceled?
No, not yet.
Okay. All right.
It's very iffy.
Yeah.
Because even Japan's in an impossible situation. Should they cancel it? Should they not cancel it?
Yeah. Can they get enough people vaccinated?
Well, they plan to. I think they start in later this month, Japan.
Yeah, because that might be what it takes.
Remember, you're getting all these athletes from all over the world.
Yeah, well, I mean, what they would do is it's like how they do the baseball and the basketball and football and all that.
Yeah.
You create a bubble. And
right.
but then the fans, which is always the biggest part of the Olympics, the fans is going to have to go into a bubble.
Yep, and not many people are going to do that or be willing to do that. So.
Right. And no one has money to spend 14 days in Tokyo. Plus, it's not cheap.
Unless you live in a capsule hotel.
Yeah, but I'm sure they're thinking of ways to do it, because the other side of that is volunteers.
Yep.
There's a lot of volunteers that come in there, but but we digressed a little bit. Actually, it's not too bad. It's a great opener for the next topic. Are you done with the McDonnell Douglas Boeing deal?
Yes.
Okay. It's a good opener because we want to talk about digital health certificates, which all of a sudden is a thing. What's going on with that?
So this is a field that, again, I have an issue with, because everyone and his brother is coming out with yet another digital health certificate.
Money, money, money.
Yes. Now, the latest one to come out with something that very much looks like a digital health certificate is ATP Go, which is this repository for fare information for airlines around the world.
They've been around forever.
Yes, they have. And yes, they're an absolute market leader in fares, in airline fares.
Mm-hmm. Without
now
them,
they want
without
nothing
them,
would happen.
nowhere, right?
So they want to venture into this digital health certificate area. Now, what that is, in case people haven't been paying attention to previous episodes, it's sort of like well, it is an app on your mobile device where you can store all your, let's say, vaccination and other travel detail information that you can present to airport authorities around the world to bypass quarantine and other issues,
Right.
security issues, because now they're saying you can put your passport information on there, everything. So ATPCO now, which stands for Airline Tariff Publishing Company, they're coming out with it. But meanwhile, a lot of other airlines are signing on to be trial carriers for instance, the International Chamber of Commerce, the AOK Digital Health Certificate. Very recently, Air Caraïbes and French Bee, including Air France, have agreed to use or trial this AOK program for travel between Paris and the French overseas territories, which is the Guadeloupes, the Martiniques, the Tahitis, and so Reunions, and all of that.
Yeah, which is good.
But meanwhile, other airlines like Malaysia and Air New Zealand are trialing the IATA travel pass. Now, all these claim to be interchangeable and compatible with each other.
They should
but
be.
it's still, yeah, they have to be. But I just don't see the marketing advantage to all these different companies putting out these different digital health certificates. I would imagine that the IATA travel pass. Now, I know you mentioned that it's all money, but I don't really get. I think it's more data driven.
Well,
because
yeah.
what is the money involved? You don't have to pay to use it.
Yeah, but when you have the data, it means that the airline would use you, and what they'll just charge you by a transaction fee.
But they jump up and down and say your data will not be sold, and I'm assuming you have to be truthful.
Whatever. Well, they're not selling your data, but they're lawyers are really creative at these words. So I'm not selling your data, but I'm transmitting your data between places, and I'm charging you a transaction fee.
You're absolute. That's what these people are stating.
Yeah.
Very, very unequivocally.
Oh yeah, that's exactly what they're doing. It makes sense. I mean, if you think about what ATPCO is, right? ATPCO already has the engine that does that.
Yes.
Because every fare worldwide pretty much goes to ATPCO.
Yep.
Or some sort of it, or some, so they already have all the access. They already have all the coding. Everything is there. All they have to do is just send another bit of data. Instead of saying, it's $35 to go here for the ticket you just bought. Oh, and I have a COVID vaccine. That's the other little bit of data that's on there. So they already have everything in place. And I'm sure when they develop these systems, just like how you can go in and add new fares and all that, you'll just be adding this same interface, same all that. And now ATP have come up with better systems so you can actually update things as you go. Normally it used to be once a day or something like that, or twice a day.
Twice a day.
Yeah, now, which a lot of people have taken advantage of when you have fare errors. And so just to make you understand, what ATPCO holds all the fares. So when you see all these errors, airlines go in, they create a fare, and then you can actually buy that fare on the other end. And the reason how you see that is a little company in the back end called ATPCO that drives that. So when you get a error fare, the reason why it takes so long to change error fare is because I think you only allowed like 2 or 3 updates a day or something like that. But the airlines,
and an error fare is
when you see these fares, it's $5 to go from New York to Hong Kong, and everybody goes and buys it, and obviously it's not $5 to go from New York to Hong Kong. And then the airlines come back and say, we are avoiding all those tickets, and everybody gets their, in a wad. And you're like, but you didn't expect to pay $5 for New York to Hong Kong, did you? And so
caused by
ATP
fat fingers, as they call it.
exactly, and so ATP drives all that, but it takes forever to change. So what the airlines have done, and we're going off topic, but that's okay. But what the airlines have done to fix that is they zero out the buckets. So because it takes so long for the fares to change, they just go in and in their revenue management system, they go, well, there's no availability. So it is $5, but we don't have any seats to sell you. Took them a little while to figure that out. But, so I think that's why I think ATPCO is actually poised to do this because they already have everything in place.
Don't you think IATA has to?
Yes.
Too?
Oh, absolutely, because they all transmit data, and so it's the race to the end. But the good thing is that they're using existing formats, existing standards, and so that's why the data is transferred, and that's why the airlines. It's easy for the airlines to do it.
But how many apps are we going to download on the phone? I mean, you go to any store, and they say, "Oh, download the app and do this." How many can we do this? Can we?
As many as your phones can hold. Because you know what, it's a matter of cost, right? So let's say ATPCO is charging the airline 2 cents for every transaction, but IATA is like, well, it's 1 cent. I'm not going to ATPCO because that's twice as much, right? And same thing when you go and search for a fare. Every time you search, the airline actually pays a fee when you're hitting, or whatever the company is pays a fee in the back end. You don't realize that. But that's a cost of doing business, because if they're not in the system, they don't get any fare. It's really complex. So it's the same thing like this. As a consumer, though, I'm more interested in the process. Like,
how easy is it to upload my information?
Yeah, what's going to happen from here, and do I just?
And is it safe?
Right, exactly. Do I have to scan my COVID card every time I go through? And it's not just COVID, right? People think that COVID vaccines are the only thing that you take. There's all the malaria shots, the TB shots, all the other shots that you take when you travel to these different places. So we're talking about technology moving ahead. The industry needed this anyway, because I still have my yellow card, which I showed you all, right? It's paper. And so we needed something to house all this vaccination information so everybody will know. So the minute I check in with my airline and they swipe my passport or something, it should come up and say, okay, I see that you don't have your COVID shot, or you don't have your malaria shot, and you're trying to go to a place where malaria shot is required. Go away. or something like that, right? Same thing with visas. We actually don't have a place to store all the visas, because all the visas they're in our passports, but they're on little pieces of paper which is tacked into our passport. So I'm assuming that they're thinking the same way of, how can I store everything that's required for my travel electronically? And how do I keep it safe? How do I download it in an app? And how do I tell you that I'm not transmitting your information, or I'm not selling your information?
Right. And what happens if you lose that electronic device?
Correct.
But never mind. We've done that before.
Correct. I show up and my battery just died.
Yep.
It's like when I need to check it out, I still print my things, because sometimes you get to the airport and your stupid phone isn't working. Or you don't have any Wi-Fi to pull it up. The young kids are like, what are you guys talking about? Paper? Who needs paper? All right, so good. So I'm glad we're getting a little way to digital health certificates. So we'll keep an eye on those, because Kusha, maybe we should come up with one. Everybody else is.
Really?
And you know what, Kusha? I think ours would be so customer centric, because we understand how a lot about how the customer, from the customer standpoint,
behaves.
Yeah, exactly. Not that these guys don't understand, but we have good knowledge. So as a matter of fact, if all these people who are doing this stuff needs some help, we're available. Just send an email.
I wish they would really give us some opportunity to trial these. Well, because I really think we could help them a great deal.
Oh, I agree with you. So here's what we're going to do. Send us an email to feedback@passradar.com, And or what I'm going to do in addition to that is try to reach out to these companies and say, yeah, we notice you guys are tested in these things. We have a podcast. We've talked about it on the show. How can we help you? Because we would definitely give them some invaluable information.
Absolutely.
Uh,
Totally agree.
all right. So that's my takeaway to do.
That's a
Uh,
challenge.
it is a challenge.
So
Okay. Um, everybody wants to do something carbon free. So the buzzword in the industry is environmentally whatever. Everything is
friendly.
environmentally friendly, and we have at least one story in this segment. We're probably going to have another episode for the next things, but we have at least one story here. And so tell me about the carbon-free transatlantic flight.
I think this is great.
Uh-huh.
And again, a very, very interesting article. So there is this UK company, which is a sustainability organization called Carbon Footprint.
Oh, that was original.
Hey, it tells you the story right away. What they have organized is called a Freedom Flight Prize. So what they want to do is offer a prize of several million British pounds, which is also tens of millions of British pounds, which is tens of millions of US dollars, essentially.
Yeah.
A prize to a company or companies that they can complete a round trip transatlantic flight between London and New York on a 100-seat aircraft or larger within 24 hours. So the reason I brought this up is because this is something that is not expected to happen before 2029.
Right.
And in between, for instance, they're being sponsored by American Express Business Global Business Travel to increase the prize money. And what I found fascinating here were the list of entrants that have so far agreed to participate.
Everybody.
Well, no, not yet. First one is the Zero Avia, which is a UK-US company that British Airways has partnered with for hydrogen fuel development. But the other two are what got my curiosity raised. There's this other company called Okulu Aerospace and another one called E-Plane Company.
Never
and you
heard
will
of
never believe where they're from.
Ukraine.
No, from
Okay.
India.
Oh, okay.
So the solutions so far from these three companies are either hydrogen or electric. The judges essentially will be from the University of Southampton. There's a Cranfield University and Farnborough Airport.
Mm-hmm.
So as I said, they expect a winner to be announced by 2029. I think this is a great idea because a 100-seat aircraft is really not a small plane. It's like an E-195
Yeah.
size aircraft.
Did they say you have to carry people?
No, they did not.
Just have 100 seats in it.
So and you have to go back and forth in 24 hours. Because remember, a 100-seat aircraft really can't do the crossing nonstop, right?
Right. But if nobody's in it.
No.
So they'll just do a proven concept, right? And then they'll come back and add people later. And right. they could also do a drone. I mean, does it have to be a person? Does it have to be piloted with people?
100-seat commercial aircraft.
Well, you know.
So I'm very curious to see what happens here.
Well, if you don't have to carry any people, then
but you have to carry at least two, right? At the very least, two people, two pilots.
Is that a requirement?
No, not a requirement. Not to my knowledge, but could be.
I could make it remote controlled. We can do that. Hey, we send rockets to space with no people.
Yeah.
So we can do a transatlantic flight with no people.
Unlikely, but who knows?
Oh
8
yeah.
years.
Oh, that's interesting. Well, um, speaking of no people, it ties right into the next story. Are you done with this one? Okay.
Yes.
I like that. I like that story. I mean, it's innovation, right? Because they will take pieces of this and then use in other.
Absolutely.
So that's really cool.
Yes.
But as we're talking about no people, um, most airplanes have at least two pilots when you fly across the Atlantic, and when you fly anywhere. When you have people in it, you have at least two people. Even the little single seater, nine seaters, although the nine seaters normally have just the one pilot in it. Like when you go to like the Caribbean, those little islands, St. John's to St.
Mhm.
John, or the Nantucket and things like that, they normally just have one pilot. But anything bigger than nine seat will have two. And now they want to only have one.
This story I know is going to get your goat.
Oh God! So
But
one I know somebody's losing their job. you know. So what have you got, Kusha?
this is a partnership between Sikorsky and FedEx, of all companies. So Sikorsky has very quietly been developing the technology to allow single pilot operations on large commercial aircraft. Now, you mentioned this earlier. Sikorsky is a huge name in helicopters.
Correct.
So this is the first that I heard of Sikorsky partnering with airlines and fixed wing aircraft. So what they're doing is that they're using a newly delivered ATR 42 300 series aircraft that was delivered to FedEx.
Okay.
And this is the largest platform that is being used for tests so far. They're doing this at an airport in Connecticut in the US. It's called Waterbury Oxford Airport,
Okay.
which is not too far from Sikorsky headquarters in Stratford, Connecticut. And this is part of a broader effort by the aviation industry to develop autonomous systems for helicopters and fixed wing aircraft.
Okay.
Now, this has been, I'm sure you're aware, a lot of people are aware that this has been debated for years and years and years. But this is the first application of this technology to an aircraft of this size. Now, this is a lot like these driverless cars. I don't think that is ever going to materialize. And if it does, it's going to lead to a huge, huge number of crashes.
We already
And
have driverless cars, Kusha, just so you know.
what's this?
We already have driverless cars.
Driverless, right? Not entirely. And look what's happened. How
Yeah,
many crashes have we heard about these Tesla cars?
because we know you're always gonna, unfortunately, that's
You
how
have
technology.
stupid people.
Yeah, and that's how technology works. But continue.
So I'm not sure how anyone would be comfortable with one pilot on a long flight. And for an ATR 42, that could be several hours. So if the pilot, for whatever reason, becomes incapacitated,
Hmm.
do we really trust technology to get us back on the ground safely?
As
I
long as
mean,
as
am
long,
I being a cynic or am I a dinosaur?
well, you do realize that there is a lot of technology. Like these airplanes can land and take off by themselves, right?
Quickly. Yep.
And
Like
so,
the autopilot landing and takeoff.
yeah,
Yes. Yes.
exactly. And they actually have autolands. Like I think the pilots are required to do autolands. So it's not foreign, right? Um, are we ready for it yet? I don't think so. I don't think.
It's not going to happen in the next few years.
Yeah, because I think it's like the max, right? As soon as you have the first accident, everyone's like, "Oh, I told you shouldn't have done it," right? And everybody's like running around and blaming, pointing fingers at each other. And it's aviation, so inevitably that's going to happen, because once that happens,
Yeah.
we realize how much we knew, how much we didn't know, and how much we have to change to make, to stop whatever happened from happening again. Um, I'm more concerned about just losing another pilot losing their job. um, I mean, I think we have the technology, but then if how does the airplane know that the pilot is incapacitated?
Right.
And
That's exactly right.
yeah, and I'm sure they're thinking about that, right? And how do
Well, they
you
better be, right?
yeah, and how does the airplane, because the airplane knows where you're going because you've already tuned in all the things,
Mhm.
right? So there has to be quite a bit of redundancy in there.
Yeah.
I would say, but the technology is all there. Didn't Airbus do something like that? They did an autonomous flight.
They have done it. Yes.
Yes,
But in fact, they are researching it. I'm sure Boeing is doing it as well.
yes, but
But I
Airbus,
don't know how realistic that is,
but thi-
honestly.
but this actually worked. Airbus had done one, and I will have to try to find the link for that. But Airbus did one. They had the flight like it might have been last year,
I
2020.
think with a 350.
Yeah,
I
with a
think they did.
350, they had a 350 that died, and I think it was completely autonomous. Yeah, there were people in it, of course, to monitor it. Uh,
Remember, that's one flight only,
yeah,
right?
but then think of all that technology, all the data they collected, right? And now they can go figure out, and they're probably doing. You know how the news is, right? We hear about the first flight, and then it's not news anymore, so you never.
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure they've done other. I mean, they have to have. They've done other flights, or they keep their flight tests going. So it's not new. Um, and ATR is in Europe, so they're probably partnering with the same type of technology or something like that. Um,
It's a division of Airbus, right? Because they do collaborate with Airbus.
yes, they are, right? Yeah.
So, yep, based in
Um,
France.
yeah, I don't know if they're a division of Airbus, but we can look it
Maybe
up.
not a division,
But they're connected somewhere
yes.
somehow. Yeah.
Yeah.
So they're probably using the similar technology there. And of course, you know how these things work. They will fly two pilots with it and they'll test it until they
Yeah.
go, okay, great. Uh, Goodbye, Mr. First Officer. I think about it, right? Remember when we had, what do you call these guys? No, the two stripe guys that
Flight
fly,
engineers.
flight
Like
engineers.
on us, the early 747s and the
Uh,
DC-10,
yep, the
which required
737.
three people, right, on
Yes,
board.
exactly. The 707s and stuff like that. And I'm sure people are like, no way, you can't take this guy out of the cockpit. And they're gone. They built a
Yep.
computer that took care of that. Took care
But
of
there's a
that.
big difference between two people on board and one, I think.
I agree with you. It's a very big difference because the human redundancy is what we need.
Yep.
And so that's going to take a lot of convincing to the FAA people. So basically, the kids that
But
are
just the
being
technology is just incredible if they can even conceive of such a concept.
yeah. So the kids that
Oh,
are being born today, they're the ones that's going to be it's going to be.
spell it again?
I know, right? It's like you used to have whom? So okay, so Sikorsky is actually, because we mentioned them in the story, they're actually doing this with the helicopter. So
Yeah.
the initial one will have one pilot. Actually, it have a seat for one pilot who won't be doing anything, but just sitting there and monitoring and making people feel comfortable. And that's in the helicopter, right? And like today's helicopter, they have one pilot and they do fly people around. So having one pilot is not it's not a strange thing. You just don't have one pilot with 300 people behind you. It's normally one pilot and less than 9 people. I think that's what the probably the FAA rules are. I could be incorrect, but that's usually what I see when I fly.
Hmm.
Um, and so it is not a foreign concept. We do that today. That is what Sikorsky is planning on doing with these electric helicopters. And guess what? They want to get rid of that one person. So the idea is, let's start with one because people are going to be scary. It's like the people mover at Disney, or even that train that they have, the DLR in London. Nobody runs it.
But look at the underground system we have here at IAH Airport in Houston.
Right.
And that's from the 70s.
It's completely automated. It's so old and it makes that boom 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 sound, but it's just.
It's absolutely wonderful, I think.
Oh yeah, I get on it just when I have nothing better to do.
And that is from the 70s and 80s.
And it still works,
technology. Right? Yep, it still works.
Now, of course, the train is different, right? Because it's just on a track and it just goes round and around. But yeah, so we'll see what happens with this. I was trying. Yeah, I'm gonna hopefully I'll remember to include some links on this story about so I guess I kept saying Sikorsky, but it's actually, well, Sikorsky does have one, but it's also Bell Helicopters.
Okay. Yeah. Another huge name in helicopters.
So Bell
Helicopters. Test with FedEx is with Sikorsky.
It's Sikorsky, yeah. But Bell Helicopter is doing something. Let me back up a little bit. Yes, and they're the ones that have the one seat thing. But Sikorsky is doing something very similar.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. We got two more stories. So more technology stuff, right? I guess.
Dare I ask you how we're doing on time?
I have zero idea.
Okay.
Only because
after all these years to keep track.
Yeah, I so in Zoom it has a little thing that you have to turn on to track the time, and I didn't look at the time when we started. I didn't turn that little tracker thing on, so I'd have to do it whenever we do the next episode. So
okay. So what are we talking about next?
We're talking about onboard seats that talk to you.
Yes. So we rarely talk about seats.
Right.
And in this episode, or in this session, we have 3 seat articles. Now, this, again, purely subjective assessment, but this is a case of technology going a little overboard.
Mm-hmm.
Not sure this is necessary, but again, that's arguable. But again, the fact that we're even talking about this is remarkable, because this is a company called Forvia Tech. This is based in Hamburg, in Germany. And they are using AI, artificial intelligence, into seat design on an aircraft. They're calling it a pressure sensor smart seat, and it's called FOVGRI. Must mean something specific. And this actually builds on a longstanding deal with airlines and aircraft manufacturers to enhance in-flight wellness. Like you have this mood lighting and air cleansing to in-seat health monitoring and all that sort of thing.
Okay.
And Forvia Tech is now going a little bit further with that. So normally we have foam in seat cushions. And what this company wants to do is to take out the foam and introduce what is called a graphene-based pressure sensor smart seat technology. So what graphene is a single carbon layer of material that is very, very light, incredibly strong, with great electric and heat conductivity. And it's really composed of what are called these carbon nanotubes.
Okay.
Which is essentially a single layer of carbon material. And what they're going to do is integrate sensors into those seats. So if a passenger, for instance, is sitting for too long in a particular technology, the AI embedded in these sensors is going to send you a message be it on the IFE or on your phone or in a display on your armrest, that you should change positions.
Okay.
Now, given that you're asleep and you typically sleep in one position for several hours, how is it going to do that? Because if it sort of jogs you away with a buzzing or something, that's going to tick me off, woken me up.
It'll just stick you. Maybe it'll know that you're sleeping and leave you alone.
But then that would defeat the purpose, right? So, but again, very unlikely source of the technology, because the chips are going to be manufactured in South India.
Okay.
And they're also looking at expanding this technology for use in German trains, the Deutsche Bahn trains. But again, I thought this was a pretty fascinating story, that now even foam is not sacred enough on an aircraft seat. Even that is going to be converted to a data source. And believe it or not, there is data involved in this information. And again, this company has sworn up and down that they will not release the name of the passenger or the weight of the passenger to any other company.
Oh, which makes sense, but they don't even need that, right? All they need to know is that somebody,
because they know the seat number, right? They know the flight number, they know this, they know that. So I automatically know your name, your details, your passport information,
but only
or this, or that.
Only if the airline passes that information to them.
True.
Yeah.
Yeah, because remember, the airline is in charge of the seat, right?
Yeah, but because like for the computer to know, all the computer needs to know is that there is a person sitting in this particular seat. You don't need to know any more data about me.
But you know they will, right?
Well, I mean, yeah, because you can weigh me because I'm sitting in the seat.
Right.
But you don't need to know that, I'm Kerwin and I'm sitting in seat 1A on, Delta or something. You don't.
Or if I'm overweight or underweight, or.
Yeah, you don't need that. You could judge how tall I am because I am sitting in the seat. So you could measure that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, that's interesting how they're doing that. I keep thinking why though.
Exactly. I think they call it a nanny state.
Yeah. It's like, okay, fine. I mean, and then if you tell me to wake up when the seatbelt sign is on, are you gonna be like, okay, let me wait for the seatbelt sign to come up, and then they go, you should have been walking 5 minutes ago, but the seatbelt sign was on and I couldn't tell you. Now that the seatbelt sign is on, and would it wake up the guy next to me and say, hey dude, you need to wake up and let me out? Because sure, we are the practical guys, because we're like, yeah, that makes all the sense, but it's a good idea, and I assume that they're gonna just use it for other things.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. The fact that they're talking to Deutsche Bahn for the trains.
Yeah, which makes it's like the sleep number bed, so I'll have my sleep number.
Right, actually.
Business class.
Yeah.
And I can see the airlines going, what, you want me to pay an extra $10 for this seat? I'm not doing it. But airlines like Qatar and Emirates will do it, right? Oh boy. All right. So you said we have 3, but I only have 1 more about aircraft seat design goes even more high tech. Is that
yes?
Okay.
Actually, there's 2 parts to that.
Okay, let's hear it.
So the first one is from a company that is based in Texas, actually, north of Dallas. It's called Star Aircraft.
Okay.
So what they are developing is yet another iteration of an advanced seat. So what they are using is a polymer called EVA, that stands for ethylene vinyl acetate. And what it is a series of, it's like a web of fibers with little nubs, for instance.
Yeah.
And they have been working with the healthcare industry in prior versions to make, let's say, a wheelchair base more comfortable for the person using it.
Okay.
So what they're going to do with this aircraft seat is incorporate that technology. They call them these nubs and webs. So if a passenger on an aircraft seat, for instance, is sitting in a position um, and moves, the structure of the seat is going to change in sort of a massaging function. So it's going to have something to do with this in-flight wellness theme that we're currently talking about. So every time a passenger moves, it's going to, as they say, deliver comfort via increased blood flow and oxygenation of support tissue, because the interior of the seat is going to move, as they say, in a sort of massaging manner.
Ah, okay.
So it's going to adjust itself to redistribute the load of the passenger on the seat structure. So these are what they call hydrophobic molecules. So in other words, they repel water and
Uh-huh.
they repel any sort of organism. So it's going to be clean, for instance, with this COVID, in the COVID era. And what they're also going to do is adapt this technology for business class seats, because a lot of the focus has currently been in the economy cabin, because they're typically the more uncomfortable seat, if you will, compared to a business class seat.
Mm-hmm.
They're all going to use this technology in all cabins for all seat types.
Okay,
And
that's
again,
interesting.
I thought this could be something useful, I think.
Yeah,
So
it definitely would be. Because I mean, a lot of these seats, um, they are uncomfortable. And
yeah,
for the short flights, it's not too bad. And the seats are uncomfortable, and for people that are taller, they just don't really work very
yeah,
well. But most people who fly, or most people in the world, are not tall. Most people actually fit in
yeah.
those seats. And the complaints you hear, people are gonna get mad now, but the complaints you hear are from people who, um, it's like people who are shorter are complaining that they don't have much leg room, and I'm like, it's fine. I'm 6'1", and the average is like five, was it 5'8", 5'9", I think is what, maybe 5'10" is what they designed these normal things, and most people fall in that range. Um,
So
so yeah, it'll be interesting to see how they do that. So will you feel like your stuff on your butt and your back moving? Oh, you have that little buttons?
be ants or something on my seat if I
I
got
know,
that
right?
massaging feeling.
I mean,
But
ideally you'd sit down and then the seat would just be like, okay, let me adjust the butt because you're too heavy, or you have like an extra this or that, or your back is different.
don't
Um,
emotionally scar me by telling me I'm heavy.
yeah, you get like a little reading. When you get your meal cushion, it'll be like, I'm
Back
sorry.
away from the buffet.
Exactly.
Yeah,
I'm sorry,
yeah.
sir. We do not recommend the chicken for you, but you can try some tofu.
Or no dessert.
Oh, dude, we should make like a little skit about that.
Don't cars already have this sort of technology?
Uh,
Massaging seats?
yes, yes, they do.
So
They
some
do.
cars, right?
Yeah, and the seats will do memory thing, so you can press the buttons and it goes to L1 or L2 or
Yeah,
whatever
yeah.
it's called. So yeah, but those are
That's
expensive.
positions though. Yeah.
It's positioned, but it also adjusts other things in the seats. So
So,
yeah, it reminds the expensive cars do
so,
that. um,
um, so anyway, that was that part of the story.
okay,
Then there's this other company called JPA Design
okay.
that has headquarters in London, in Singapore, and in Dubai.
Hmm.
And so what they are doing now is introducing something called AirTech, which
Okay,
is the lightest business class seat. Because as I mentioned, a lot of the seat technology
it's heavy.
improvement has been for the back, for the
Mm-hmm.
economy cabin. But this is a company that is now borrowing from Formula One technology
Oh,
that has been
nice.
in use for decades. So what they are designing is what they call a monocoque composite construction. And what monocoque is a single shell.
Okay.
Chassis of the seat actually forms part of the structure of the seat.
Okay.
And so consequently, there are fewer moving parts. So that makes the seat lighter.
Right.
So um, as I said, this technology has been used in Formula One for a while, and it's the structure of the seat, the frame of the seat, that actually gives rigidity to design, to the design of the seat. So it's all one piece. But the best part of this that I thought was valid was that this seat has space under it to store a full-size onboard carry-on piece of luggage, and that you do
Wow.
not find on
On
a
business
J
class
seat.
seats. Yeah.
Yes. So that I thought was one selling point, and it aims to undercut the best current seat design by about 9% in weight. Um,
That's it.
yeah, but that's actually quite a lot.
It is a
So
lot, but it seems small.
this is actually a company that is gets a lot of its funding from the UK government. It's working with two companies actually called Williams Advanced Engineering and SWS Certification.
Okay.
And so, yeah, they want to release a final model at an aircraft interiors expo that's currently scheduled for Hamburg on August 31st, 2021.
Yeah,
But
that's
you talked about the 9% saving of weight.
mm-hmm.
Um, uh, economy seat, on average, the best one, and Recaro is the leading design company for this, weighs about 9 kilograms, which is about 20 pounds. That's
Is
the
it
best seat design
really?
for economy. Yes.
It seems like it would be heavier, right?
Yeah. But I was going to ask you this question. Can you guess the average seat, modern seat in business class? How much do you think that weighs in kilograms and or pounds?
Okay. Those are really heavy guys. And I know they're
Yeah,
heavy
because they have a
because
lot of moving parts.
yeah. I'd probably say about maybe about 500 pounds.
No, that's a little too much.
Is that okay? That's
It's about double. So it's about 100 kilos
oh,
or about 220 pounds.
okay.
And this is
So
typically on seats for the 787 and the 350.
so
So,
that's about the weight of well, it's 170 pounds they use for a person. So it's actually not too bad. It's only 50 pounds more than the typical weight of
right.
a person.
So what this company says that instead of 100 kilograms, they can come in at 91 kilograms. So
Hmm.
instead of 220 pounds, it's 200 pounds. So that's about a 20-pound saving or about a 9 kilogram saving.
Which
But
I guess
given
is like
that you have about 30 to
34.
50 seats
Yeah,
in a typical business class wide body aircraft,
that's a
that
big
amounts
saving.
to a significant weight saving.
Yeah, it's a big fuel savings then.
So exactly.
Yeah.
But I saw a picture of this seat, and I'm not exactly sure how they're going to design the bed aspect of it, how it's going to convert to a bed. But the fact that it has the stowage capacity under the seat for a full-size carry-on is what attracted me to this story.
So you're just going to be, I mean, I guess if you're if the carrier if this is the seat,
Uh-huh.
because all the underneath stuff is all the mechanical stuff that sits underneath it, right?
Right. So
So
where are they going to move that? So I guess we'll find out in August in Hamburg.
yeah, yeah. I've never been to that show. I've always wanted to go, but I've never gone to that show yet. And I guess it'll be a COVID compliant show.
If it isn't online.
Yeah.
But again, this is such a remarkable story, I think.
Yeah, that is actually pretty cool.
No one's
Especially,
done this earlier.
I know I was gonna say it took him this long to figure out, and you know what, you know why it works is because those seats are are designed to withstand crashes.
Exactly right.
Yeah.
Yep.
But it's crashes at 200 miles an hour as opposed to 600 miles an hour. So, but still, I mean, because
But also the fire
yes,
resistant, flame
exactly.
resistant. Yeah.
Because one of the big things about those seats is that they are super heavy.
Yeah. And they're
Um,
not cheap.
they're not cheap. They have so many moving parts. I wonder, because you've seen the new JetBlue Mint seats, right?
Yes.
Um,
Yeah.
so that'd be interesting to see what they do with those. Sorry, there's a squirrel, so I'm taking a squirrel picture. And
So yes, we've hardly ever talked about seats, and this time we have 3 stories on
yeah,
seats.
cool. No, that's really good. And I think that's the last one we had, yes, in this category.
So
Um, all right, cool. So that's that yeah, that was the last one. All right, good deal. So thank you guys for listening. I don't know how long this episode is, might have been an hour at least.
oh,
Uh
well beyond that.
I think it's about
But
an hour and a half. But it was good, it was good topics.
yes, I thought so. Very different topics to speak.
It is, and Kushal got really excited, and I got excited too. So I must admit, these are some good topics.
Very sketchy when you say it like that.
What's that?
Both of us getting excited.
About the topic, Kushal. Come on,
Okay.
there might be other people listening to this story now. Just kidding. It's because we're passionate about aviation, so that's good. But thank you guys for listening. Thank you guys for coming on this journey with us. Remember, we are on Spotify. We are on Amazon Music. We're on iTunes. And again, the thing about iTunes is apparently if you're not on iTunes, nobody knows you exist. So go to iTunes, search for us, What's Happening in Travel, and you can download the episode there. And please share and please give us some kind of rating so we know how we're doing.
And more importantly, feedback.
Yes, feedback is always, 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 always good. So we know what's going on. And if you want to see something different, if you want to see us talk about a different topic, or if there's a topic that's bugging the crap out of you, or you have a question or something, send us an email at feedback@passrider.com. And of course, if you need aviation consulting, we can do that too. Feedback@passrider.com is what to send. So I think that's it. This is Kerwin and my buddy,
For sure.
and we are signing off for episode, what was it, 71?
71.
All right, sounds good.